So tonight we're doing a panel with business owners and entrepreneurs. These are a few of several in our church. We have a lot of professionals in our church and a lot of entrepreneurs in our church and budding entrepreneurs as well. And so as I've been talking this month about taking care of business, these are people who have taken care of business and are taking care of business. And I think we're going to learn some things from them tonight. Most of us know them all, but in case you don't, I want to introduce them. As I introduce each one, I want to ask that they come on up. Yeah, that's how we're going to do that. Come on up, and then I'll come and join you. All right, we're going to start with Mike Goodwin. Mike Goodwin is a refreshingly funny comedian, speaker, and humor coach. See, somebody said, Pastor, you ain't funny, you need to let him coach you, okay? He's a native of Camden, South Carolina. He's an Army veteran, and he resides here in Columbia, South Carolina with his wife, Rosalind, and their 2 children. Come, let's receive Mike Goodwin tonight. As I mentioned, Rosalind Goodwin is Mike Goodwin's wife, and he's her husband, okay? She's a vice president for engagement and a lobbyist for South Carolina Hospital Association. She's also the COO of her company, Confidence, and along with her daughter, Gabby, they invented Gabby Bows, which is a double-faced, double-snap hair barrette. And Gabby, the daughter, was named the youngest ever South Carolina Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2015. And also Gabby Bowes was named the National 2016 Outstanding Diverse Business of the Year by the SCORE Foundation. All right. Dr. Stephanie Wise. Dr. Stephanie Wise is a passionate and dedicated outcomes-driven pharmacist, endeavoring new and inventive ways to enrich the lives of people. She's the owner and pharmacist in charge of Oasis Pharmacy, a long-term care pharmacy in West Columbia. She holds her degrees from Clemson, master's from University of Florida, and a pharmacy doctorate from University of South Carolina. And last but certainly not least is Tyler Bailey, Esquire. Tyler is the founder and managing attorney for Bailey Law Firm in Columbia. In this position, he manages the business operations of Bailey Law Firm and represents his clients throughout South Carolina, primarily in the areas of personal injury, workers' compensation, criminal defense, family law, and civil litigation. His law degree is from Southern University Law Center, cum laude, where he was managing editor of the Southern University Law Review and earned his undergraduate degree from Hampton University with honors, paid by me. I just think I need some credit. Every time I'm still recovering from, praise the Lord. All right, so welcome our panel tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us. Some of you, this was quick and on the spot. We had to do some turnarounds. I was trying to diversify, and Pastor Trey was supposed to be with us tonight, but Pastor Trey had to funeralize his grandmother today in Georgia. All right, so hold on here, y'all. My offering didn't go all the way through. There you go. So, again, thank you all for being with us. How y'all doing?
Good, Pastor.
How was your day? Busy. Everybody have busy day. I see that. See, entrepreneurs always talk about how busy their days are. They're very busy people. So, again, we're grateful that they've taken the time to be with us tonight. So I kind of introduced them already. So let me see. Is there anything else I want to ask regarding your introductions? So each of you, how long have you been independent and operating as an entrepreneur?
I've been 10 years full-time entrepreneurship.
10 years.
Our business just turned 9 years old.
Awesome.
I'm the new kid on the block, so my business just launched last year.
Can we adjust that mic up a little bit? Okay. She said your business just launched last year.
Yes, last year.
October, right?
Correct.
All right. And Tyler Bailey?
Almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years. So Tyler, how old were you when you launched your business?
25.
We were talking about this the other day, and I was asking Tyler, knowing what he knows now as an attorney for almost 10 years, what did I ask you? Would you do it again, or did you do it at the right time and all that? Address that.
Yeah, I was asked, pretty much, knowing what you know now, do you think you were too young to start? And I've been asked that question a lot. And I gave an analogy the other day to somebody, is when David fought Goliath, right? He knew he was used to fighting sheep and lions and bears. But the giant, all the men who knew what the giant would bring were scared. So I did not necessarily understand the entire undertaking, but I think it was divine that I started when I did.
Okay. So for each of you, is your business a Christian business? You know, like y'all got on your cards, for God so loved the world, and fish, and all that kind of stuff. Is your business a Christian business, or are you a Christian who does business? You can answer that any way you want to, and I'm being neutral in it.
Really?
I am.
Okay. Our business is, I don't consider our business to be a Christian business. When I think of the words Christian business, I think of a business that their product or service is Christ-centered. And I know a number of businesses that are Christian businesses, like the Kingdom Business Network, Dunamis Woman. Their products, their services are leading people to Christ or strengthening people's relationship with Christ. Now, of course, our business is centered around Christ. We open every meeting with prayer. The business was birthed through a prophetic word from you, but I don't consider our business to be a Christian business in the sense of fish and all those other things. And deep names of businesses. I mean, I've seen, Jehovah Jireh car washes and stuff. I don't think we have to do all of that
I
to
think
dominate.
they try to get their car a little cleaner, though.
Right. So
Okay.
the point I'm making is whatever endeavor you have, whatever gifting you have, whatever product idea you have, you can take that, as secular as it may be, and lead people to Christ through your business and you dominating in the world and leading people that way.
Okay. Now, Mike, you're a comedian, and there are some comedians, and I've seen get on a high horse about it, who says, I am a Christian comedian, versus a comedian who happens to be a Christian. Talk about that.
I think when I first started, I would have said I was a Christian comedian because my primary marketplace was churches. So I was doing churches, I was doing family reunions, I was doing your 75th grandparents' birthday party, and they were looking for Christian comedians. They wanted it. And I also think that when you work clean and you are a believer, they put Christian on that to identify. He don't do that dirty comedy. He don't do that nightclub comedy. He do that Christian. But then that also is a little bit of a misnomer because I feel like they want me to come to their youth events and they want me to come and do small comedy, little comedy. He do that Christian. He not doing the big dogs, but he do that little Christian comedy. So it's kind of a open hand, a backhand compliment. So initially I had Christian on my stuff. I probably had Christian comedian on my website, on my literature. But as I grew and wanted to be more inclusive of the marketplace, I do a lot of corporate events. I do clubs. So I realized that if you put Christian on, not only does it attract Christians, but it repels some people that I need to be attractive. So I'm not a Christian comedian by virtue of it's in my title. I'm a Christian that operates on stage in a manner that's pleasing to God. So you won't find any content that doesn't line up with my belief system. Now, there's some Christians that are comedians, but their act is not Christian. They don't have a Christian routine.
Okay, y'all want to address that? Are your businesses, do you have a Christian law firm, a Christian pharmacy?
So I was interpreting that question more, thinking about it
However you interpret it.
from the terms of company culture.
Okay.
So, I think of a Christian company, I think of a Hobby Lobby, or I think of a Chick-fil-A, and their product might not necessarily be a quote-unquote Christian product, but you definitely understand what their belief system is by how they run their company. So from that premise, I would consider my pharmacy to be a Christian pharmacy. We open each day with devotion. When things feel like it's going off the rails, we need to recenter. It's nothing for us to have a prayer in the middle of the day. I think it's just important that we understand the purpose while we're there, who our pharmacy is servicing, and making sure that we keep that top of mind to make sure that we stay on the right track every day.
Okay. Tyler?
I was talking to my wife about this question on the way here, and she said that I'm not a Christian business, right? I believe.
Was that what do you call that? An open-handed backhand?
No, I said, I believe by definition of how Jesus operated, I am a Christian business. Jesus, was not judgmental. He called strikes, balls. I brought cases against churches who've done wrong things from time to time. I've represented people accused of committing crimes. I was their advocate in those spaces. I think by definition, I try to operate as Christ would if he was a lawyer. I'm an advocate for people. I'm there for them during tough times. I'm non-judgmental. I've represented same-sex couples for adoptions. I've done same-sex divorces.
I didn't know that, y'all.
Now, the law allows it to happen, right? So who am I to say that I won't assist them in any role that I can assist? And I'm willing to go before Christ and answer to that. All right? I've represented people
Go
accused.
before me and answer.
Now, and let me give some clarification on that, all right? So if there's a kid that a heterosexual Christian couple does not want to give a home to, and people aren't rushing in droves to adopt these people, why shouldn't this kid who has two people who want to bring him in be afforded the opportunity to be in that home? So I always tell people, if you have a problem with same-sex adoptions, and I don't really practice family law anymore, if you have a problem with it, then you should adopt some kids. Or encourage some of your friends to adopt kids. The law is applied equally, and that's my role as an attorney. Nobody asks a doctor when he performs a surgery on somebody who had a massive heart attack. Oh, this person who had a heart attack, does he believe in Jesus? Is he a homosexual or is he straight? But they expect lawyers, which is a very judgmental field, to almost discriminate in their practice of law. And so this may be a little bit of a legal, analysis towards how I justify our practice of law. But the law should be applied equally. The same rules they use against same-sex couples sometimes, they use against African Americans. And you got to be very careful when you think that I should be afforded something, but somebody else should not be afforded it. So I believe I operate as Christ would if he was in my position. I do not discriminate against anybody who deserves legal services. Now, there's some cases I won't take. I'm not representing child molesters. That's just one thing I'm not doing. All right, and I'm not doing much family law anymore. But I don't discriminate, and like Jesus turned over the Pharisees, ran up in the church, threw the table over, I'm willing to do the same thing.
You want to flip some tables?
I'm willing to flip some tables.
Interesting, very interesting. I've discovered some things here tonight that we'll be talking about more later. So when I think of a Christian business, I don't necessarily think of. I'll be honest with y'all. I get a little leery when I start seeing them advertise too much Christian. Now this is just me, because what does that mean exactly? Versus, I think as a Christian business person, you should operate by Christian principles, and you ought to perhaps have a biblical, Christ-centered worldview. But that doesn't mean, again, that, see, when I think of Christian business, it's someone who only is targeting Christians as their customers, only providing services to Christians. That's how I think as a Christian business. I think anyone who's a Christian should operate from the premise that that is who I am, so that's how I show up every day. You know, that's how I think about that.
Pastor, that's an interesting concept too, because some people who would deem themselves as Christian business don't operate in a spirit of excellence, which It's not.
which does not represent Christ
Which
well.
does not represent Christ.
Right, definitely. So, Rosa, you mentioned a little bit. What was the impetus for you starting your business? Definitely.
So in my case, we recently had acquisitions of smaller independent pharmacies by larger agencies, and there definitely was a void in my industry in this area. So the Holy Spirit spoke to me about launching our pharmacy, and specifically spoke to me about that void. And I really spent some time in prayer about whether or not that's what I should do. But that ultimately was the impetus for me launching.
So in launching, were you excited or were you scared, or was it
I was
feeling some kind of way?
all of the above. All of the above. I definitely was. I consider myself to be very conservative. I don't really take a whole lot of risk in anything. And so this was a big risk. This was totally out of my comfort zone. I spoke with Roz just about some of one of the biggest hurdles for me was I was always taught when you are putting away like long-term savings, you don't ever think about that. But when you're launching a pharmacy, you have to put a lot of skin in the game. And there was a lot of initially fear just about how I was going to take away our safety blanket, so to speak, thinking about how I was going to be investing in that. So it definitely was there was some fear there. I was excited about it, but definitely had to overcome.
Now, I think I know a little bit about all of you, but I think you, from what I know, probably had the biggest financial investment in your business. Can you
Yes.
talk a little bit about that?
Yes.
As much or general as you want to be about that.
Yes. So typically when you're launching a pharmacy, I had an idea in mind of what it was going to be. So I was thinking, $250,000, $300,000 overall is what I would need to launch a business. But starting a pharmacy, you're really looking at an investment closer to $750,000. And so I had to put $100,000 of my own money into my business. So that was a big check to write.
Yeah. And God, I know we text a lot and emailed a lot as you were starting your business. Did you see the hand of God in pulling all that together?
Oh, yes.
Or was it just because of your business acumen and your experience? Or, how did God help you through all that?
That was all God. That was not my business acumen. I do have experience with running the business of a pharmacy from my previous role in big box pharmacy, but no, this was definitely just God. One of the strategies that the Lord gave me early on was fasting. So as I went throughout this process, every Wednesday I fasted until 6 p.m. And in all of that, one of the first orders of business for me was to put people in place who knew what I did not know. And so that was a pharmacy-specific accountant. And thankfully, my neighbor is an accountant who gave me a lot of advice about who I needed to employ. But having that pharmacy-specific accountant to really help me navigate that process was definitely crucial, as well as a business coach that Roz connected me with, and definitely having the people on my team to help me and fill in the gaps was critical.
Okay. So Tyler, you just started right outside a law firm against my recommendations. What was the impetus for you just going right out after law school, starting a law firm versus getting a high-powered job as an associate at a known law firm and working your way up, and then maybe one day, perhaps now, 10 years ago, starting a law firm?
Well, I truthfully believe that God has always put the, vision for my life to be an entrepreneur, to have my own, in whatever vocation that was. It happened to be law. And there's you who were fired, when you was fired, when you were what? How old were you when you were fired?
35.
35. And I remember watching my dad around the house, the press, blinds closed, and I think subconsciously I felt like I never wanted to be in that position. All right. I have
That
more
won't
faith
be
in
me.
Now, I have more faith in myself and God, who, if God told me to do this, I'm going to be fine, regardless. Money will come if I follow what the purpose that God put inside of me. And if I don't follow that, I more than likely won't be fine. And so it may seem logical to get a job with some benefits. You're about to get married, start a family. But that just, truthfully, when it didn't even seem like a real option. It didn't seem like a legitimate option for the course of my life. And I think if I would have done that, I would have been outside the will of God for my life, number one. I think that I would not have been happy. I probably would have got fired. And I probably would not be doing what I'm doing now. Because by starting off on my own and following what God put in me to do, I believe that gave me some confidence to practice law in a way where I was a giant killer, not scared to take on a big corporation without having the backing of a big law firm. When I talk to lawyers, they're like, wow, you took on that case? I would never did that. How much did you have to spend on it? I mean, me spending $50,000 on the case at 25, 26 years old against a multinational corporation and being by myself in federal court, I didn't think I was taking on something that was large. Now, looking back, if somebody's 25 years old, I'm like, you may want to bring on a lawyer on that case, right? But it was just how it started off, and God gave me the grace and ability to do it.
So I'm hearing something. I told you I got this message that I've been studying but meditating on about the blessing of not knowing. Can y'all, each of you, what register you when you hear that? Because I think sometimes you can know too much, and because you know so much, you're unwilling to move. You're unwilling to take the risk. I'll be honest with y'all. If I was starting a church now, God would have to talk to me long and strong. I was 34 years old. And of course, I never envisioned all this. But even, I know I heard God and I stepped out. But looking back, if I even just operated probably as assistant pastor up until now, knowing all that I know, I probably would have been very, very reluctant to take that move because of all that I know.
I completely agree with that. The origin of our story, many people have heard, has honestly been heard all over the world through Good Morning America, Black Enterprise, Essence, Forbes magazine. You often, if you hear Gabrielle be interviewed, it's our pastor. This is our pastor, people online. But the Twitter exchange that I was having with a number of moms, even in this church, about losing barrettes, and pastor jumping into this Twitter exchange and replying to me sounds like a market you need to break into. We were just frustrated. I'm just really just trying to blow off steam. So, right now on your phone, go make sure you're following Bishop Bailey and Dr. Marcia, and make sure that you have notifications set up. I'm never missing another tweet from Pastor again. So that Twitter suggestion just left something on me that I could not shake for weeks. And as I was styling Gabrielle's hair 2 weeks later, I mumbled something under my breath like, man, somebody needs to make a bow. And I had no intention, even after I responded to you, that, yeah, Pastor, I'll look right into that. I wasn't planning on looking into anything. But I couldn't shake it. And I did not know anything about this. Even if we had come up with a concept, I couldn't even draw it. Brother Juan is here. God just put people in our path to help us with whatever that next step was. If I knew how much manufacturing would cost and that I would need to get it made in China and I'd have to get it shipped over on boats over the sea, and no, I would have never dipped into retirement and pulled money out and made all these types of sacrifices our family has made over the last 9 years. So there's definitely a blessing in not knowing all of the things. Now, I'm a person, wouldn't consider myself a planner, but I do like to see steps 1, 2, and 3, maybe. But that's not how faith works. You don't get this blueprint. And it was just literally, all I could hear was, sounds like a market you need to break into. Sounds like a market you need to break into. Okay, market, break into. What does that mean? And when it was time for us to connect with someone, he just always brought somebody to our path, whether it was Juan or Kevin Felder encouraging us to make a video that ended up, semi going viral and people ordering that day that we released the video. But there were also times that I went and talked to people that I should not have gone to, because I figured if I'm starting a business, there's this one woman, when I think about business and entrepreneurship in Colombia, I was like, okay, I need to talk to this person. This was, 11, 12 years ago. I made all this effort to get in touch with her, and the doubt, fear, and unbelief she pumped into me set our business back about 3 years.
Wow. Wow.
And as soon as I hung up the phone, God was so loud. I didn't tell you to call her. I was like, oh my.
Wow.
But, all of the stuff she said, really. So not knowing and just hearing God's next move. Talk to Juan, talk to Kevin, talk to this person. Just the snail's voice in those next steps.
That's good. Stephanie, you got a story about talking to the wrong person too, right?
Oh, I did.
Tell us about that.
I talked to the wrong person because I spoke with my aunt, who is a serial entrepreneur, and she said, well, you need to reach out to the SBDC. That is who you need to connect with to give you some resources. The Small Business Development Center, based out of USC. They're all across the country, but based on where you live, there will be a representative that can help walk you through the process of writing a business plan and funding options and things of that nature. And so I reached out to the SBDC, and they connected me with someone in my area. And I remember talking to him and explaining, what my vision was. And I remember talking to my husband after it, and I said, I feel like he was just scrolling Instagram the whole time I was talking. I don't think he listened to anything I said. And he asked me, he said, so when are you thinking about launching? And this was January of last year, of 22. And I said, I want my ribbon cutting to be on January 27th of 23, because that was when I was turning 40. I wanted it to be on my 40th birthday. And he laughed out loud, laughed in my face. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, that's not who I'm going to talk to again. Once again, reached out to Big Sister Roz and explained to her, and she said, no, you need to speak with this person, who was instantly just so excited to hear and the person who I was initially connected to was the healthcare business expert in the Columbia area, but was so doubtful, there's no way you can launch a pharmacy in a year, just for you to even think that. You're so far above your head in thinking that. So I sat I remember emailing you, Bishop, and you had just preached that night in Fort Mill about digging for more. And I remember you responding, this might be, this is your opportunity, you might need to dig for more. Look and see, at least start fact finding. And I really thought that in that process, okay, well, I will have the facts to, talk myself out of it. Maybe this isn't what I need to do. But as I continue to take those steps forward, God really just laid out the next step. I would take one step, and then this opportunity presented itself, or this connection was made. And, we were able to so from the time I started writing my business plan, January 31st of 2022, and we launched on October 17th, 2022.
Awesome. So, y'all hear me talk about all the time. You have to be careful who you talk to, who you share vision with, who you share your dream with. You better have faith friends and all that, because there's always going to be the Tobias and Sanballats who say you'll never be able to build this wall. You'll never be able to get this done. So that's so important. Tyler, you ever talk to the wrong person? Yeah, watch it.
There was a...
Let me say this. No, seriously, let me say this. It is, so of course, Tyler's my son, okay? And so I realize that even sitting here listening to y'all, okay, each one of you, I remember, Mike, when you talked to me about going full-time in comedy, you sat in my study, I said, go for it. You doing your rent, sound like something you need to break into. you texting me or emailing me? And I said, oh yeah, go for it. Tyler, he didn't get that from me initially. The difference is, this is my son. And as a father, and God had to deal with me about that. Because at the same time, I know that just because I tell you get a word from your man of God to move forward, doesn't mean not going to be struggles, doesn't mean there won't be obstacles. But as a parent, you always want to have your child avoid all those struggles, avoid all those obstacles. And so the Lord spoke to me and told me that I cannot teach faith to my children and then not expect them to walk in it. And so in walking in it, some of them, they will have to walk through some of the same type of things that I walked through. The difference would be is that ideally I would be there to help them through it. But I could not cause them to not step out because I want them to avoid going through. I mean, my daughter Kendra and what she's doing in New York, that was all faith. The last thing I want to do, have my young daughter graduate from college, move to New York City. But she really believed the Lord told her to do this, and she kept saying, Dad, work with me, just work with me. You know, the Lord want me here in New York. And all that is unfolded. But as a father, as a parent, you want to help your children avoid certain things that you cannot if they're going to operate in faith just the way you did as well.
Yeah, and saying that, there was a minister who told me once to chew the meat, spit out the bone when you get advice from some people. And so when I get advice, I want to hear different opinions, right? And I always believe you cannot delegate God's purpose and vision for your life and expect somebody else just to further you along. So it's my job to see the vision that God has for my life through. I hope that others are in agreement and support me, but I can't go to anybody else and think this person has to encourage me. If they don't, then it's going to get me off a course. So I look, there's a lawyer friend of mine. He's as cheap as it can be. He doesn't agree in paying anybody. I mean, if the minimum wage is here, he barely wants to pay over that, right? He can give me some good business advice, but I know he's cheap. So I know I'm not going to get his advice about should I spend $100,000 on this case. He's going to say absolutely not, right? So I have talked to the wrong people for things, but I've known what I'm going to him for. And even with, for example, my dad, all right? I know he loves me, and his primary concern is for my safety and well-being, all right? He doesn't want to see me fail. He doesn't want me broke. He doesn't want me living back in the house. He doesn't want, all right? So I know that his advice, most of it's going to be real good, especially on this pulpit, great advice. Sometimes in the kitchen, he may say, you should think about that, Tyler. And I know it's coming from a place of love, though. So anybody who's thinking about starting a business, if you talk to sometimes your spouse, your parents, your uncles, and your cousins, know that when they give you advice, most of the advice is going to be wanting you to do well. So I don't get jaded by them not saying, why didn't you just tell me to go and get it? Because at the end of the day, we want everybody to be safe and loved and happy and not broke. And God may want us to do something else, because God, I believe, is not primarily concerned with our comfort. He's concerned with his purpose. And all of us have a purpose. And it's not to sleep and just be comfortable and live a safe life. It's to fulfill whatever his purpose is for our lives, and it's our job to see it through.
Tyler Perry's mother told him when he kept having these failed plays and nobody showing up, sleeping in his car. See, now I done told you, you just need to go on down there to the phone company and get yourself a job down there. That's what his mother told him. He often tells that story. His mother, just go on down to the phone company like everybody else here in town and get yourself a nice, secure job. And if you're going to fulfill God's will for your life, you can't just be looking for comfort and security. Because the way of faith, I've had people come up to me and tell me they've been in panic and say, Pastor, I lost my job. And I said, well, praise God. God's going to take you on adventures of faith. And they look at me like, God really going to show you how big he is and what he can do. And that doesn't come, most times that doesn't come with security and comfort. Yeah. What's been your greatest challenge as a business owner? Anybody can jump in.
My greatest challenge as a business owner is a lot of times in our grind culture, it goes against faith and how I've seen, the Sabbath, resting one day out the week, and taking time for your family and church is constantly going against the grind culture. And I know the tithe is a principle, right? Tithing. So most people are scared to give 10%. I think that's the floor. And then with your time, people believe you got to work. Not understanding God wants us to work, but he also wants us to take time for our families, take times to rest. And my greatest challenge has been balancing all that, because there's always something to do. But I believe if you truly honor the principles that God has for work, that he will bless you more with less time than if you just work 24/7. And I constantly have to go through it. I have a lot going on this week. We got the marriage conference, right? Friday, Saturday, Valentine's Day, I celebrated this past weekend. And I was about to text my wife, I don't know if I'm going to church on Sunday. I need to work. And God convicted me. He said, don't send that text. Just go to church. You got a lot on your plate. It's going to work itself out. And that's a constant in my head. Because lawyers, they work 24/7. They work on weekends. They don't care what's going on. And that's the expectation in the practice of law. And clients don't care. At the end of the day, they care about their case. And sometimes you have to balance all that out. And it's tough.
It's good.
Pastor, so I'm brutally honest in how I process. One of my biggest challenges that I felt most isolated and most lonely is the challenge of success. Doing well when others aren't.
Wow. That's good. Talk about that.
We bought a building in the middle of COVID. I knew comics didn't work when it got jobs. And so there is a level of loneliness that you walk out, and you can't ask everybody's opinion and get everybody's input. And you'll just, I've casually said how much I've made or had, and it's totally shifted relationships.
Wow.
Folks that we was buddy, that's my man. And now I get in slide room, oh yeah, Mike, yeah, I don't want to ask him about that. He's making all that money over there. It's like, what? And they don't call, there's no connection. And so what you need to do, or what I've learned to do, is to, number one, not feel guilty for succeeding.
Come on.
That's
good.
Like, the amount of times I would beat myself up, and where I'm from, Pastor says all the time, Jersey City, New Jersey, from the projects. I'm from this broken, dysfunctional family out of Camden, South Carolina. And the things I've seen and the challenges that even are still in my bloodline, and I got what I got going on, it can be overwhelming to talk to family members. And in some of that stuff, it ain't even other people. It's what's going on in your mind.
Right.
The enemy plays in your mind. The folks don't want to hear from you. They don't want to talk to you. And they do. They want to. They want to support you. They may not know how to. And so I think it's important to educate folks around you as you are succeeding and going to another level. I think that's been challenging. I think the other thing, too, that has been a blessing to me is to get around folks that's making way more money than I make. Because when I think there's a lot of money, I'm like, oh, man, I made that last week. You're like, oh. Let me get my butt back in the room, man. Do some studying.
Yeah.
But you got to be exposed to more.
That's good, Mike.
When you become more, you got to be exposed to more. And what got you there is not going to get you to the next place in life that you're headed.
That's good. I think Bishop J, I don't know if it was a book or a message he preached one time. Can you handle being blessed? Because there's a lot that comes with that of being blessed, successful, that, like you said, people don't talk about. And some of that is going to another level, and your friends or associates or those who are with you at this level, they're looking at you different. and they start withdrawing from you, and you start getting persecution. That's what it is on some level from them, and being able to deal with that, and understand that sometimes as God blesses you, there is going to be a separation, and it's not necessarily that you were doing it, but it just comes with this level that God's taking you to, and you got to be prepared for that. Any of you want to say anything about that? About greatest challenge?
I'll share. If you had asked me this last week, I would have said access to capital. You know, we got a product-based business. It's very capital intensive. But what God's really been dealing with me the last week, probably since Saturday, because I went back home and sat through a funeral service that jogged a couple of memories for me. And then when you were teaching on Sunday about rooting out before you can build, my greatest challenge has been mindset.
Wow.
And mindset to really believe you can have more, even under all this word. I think sometimes when you get some level of success, you're figuring out, well, that's more than I anticipated. You know, I didn't think I was going to be that successful, so I'm good. You know, like I'm comfortable. But there's so much more. And it is a constant struggle to expand my mindset to say, okay, no, that's not enough.
Wow.
And like Mike said, we just got to get around other people who make you believe, okay, that ain't really, oh, really, okay. But it is a constant struggle with mindset. I recognize that even my traditional upbringing and, listening to a preacher preach on Saturday and all the poverty mentality, it's so deeply rooted. It is a stronghold.
Yeah.
It really is. And I started thinking, I was like, wow, I sat under this for my whole life, 20 something years. And then you think you're going to just come to right direction and, be sometimes
Money
in and out, and money coming, and that's going to do it. Like, no, you got to uproot that stuff. This is a stronghold in your mind.
Yeah.
And you have really got to do some work with mindset. That's through word, that's through prayer, but you got to do some inner work to uproot that stuff, because as much as you're going to hear, there's more. You got this stronghold and you got this block in your mind that, well, I'm good.
That's good. That's good. In your opinion, what are the skills or characteristics that's necessary to work for yourself? I don't know if if you remember a story that I was 10 years in the insurance industry as a claims adjuster, but I almost got fired probably my second year. And that's because long before a pandemic, claims adjusters would work at home. If you had a big caseload and you need to work home to get things caught up, so they said you had to be in office at least twice a week. I'm like, okay, that's good, twice a week. So I could be home the rest of the week. But I was home the rest of the week, but I wasn't necessarily working at home. And then so they would call up, they would just, randomly review certain files. And when they went to go to review my cases, this is behind, and I hadn't followed with this one, I hadn't called this one, and I almost got fired. And so I had a mentor who took me up under his wings, told me, Herb, you are skilled at this, but you got to be disciplined with your time. You have to have structure. He sent me to a class that changed my life, which was managing multiple priorities. And I've learned certain skills, even about how to prioritize, that I still use to this day. And so that was my greatest challenge, of being able to have the discipline to work independently. And a lot of people think they want to work for themselves, but they don't necessarily have the discipline to work for themselves. So address that. What do you think are the skills and characteristics you need to work for yourself?
I think one of the biggest things, I heard a friend of mine, we have a conversation, he was saying the biggest investment that you can make is in your house. And we learned that one of the biggest investments you can make is in the kingdom of God. But I believe that also one of the biggest investments that you can make is in yourself.
Without a doubt.
And you have to develop personal development and growth. That needs to be the floor of working for yourself. You have to be the type of person that you would want to work for if you was out in the workforce. And some of us know I wouldn't work for me. No, man. I'm not working for me. And so you have to develop capacity for where you're going, not for where you are. I think oftentimes when we see, this is one of the first things I backdoored into entrepreneurship. I went out, I want to tell jokes. I want to be a comedian, or make people laugh. I made a real pivot, probably 4 or 5 years into working as a stand-up. I stopped seeing myself as a comedian. I started seeing myself as an entrepreneur. Because a comedian sits around and waits for the phone to ring for some bookings. Comedian saying, hey man, how can I get on this gig? How can I get on this show? Entrepreneur goes and monetizes the skills and the abilities that they have. And so that shifted everything for me as it related to building a table as opposed to waiting to be invited to a table. And so I think number one is be relentless about your personal development. And we have such an advantage because we have the God factor. Like, he's gonna put his super on top of our natural. And so if you are killing it naturally, imagine what God, how much more he can do with you. If you already are 5-star, hey man, I'm gonna get you to the lead. But if you can't get out the bed, how we gonna supernatural this?
Right.
That and integrity. Integrity, man, look. Integrity, I think is the corner piece for business, especially we live in the age of relationship. Folks don't care much about you a celebrity. I'm a celebrity. I'm on my live at your comedy show. I don't care nothing about your comedy show. I'm on live. So we live in the age of relationship. What can you work with me to accomplish? And if I don't have integrity, if my relationships continually break down, I can't make money.
Come on.
Because nobody's going to refer me. They're not going to have good things to say about me. So I think you have to have professional development. You have to have integrity and definitely discipline. You have to be disciplined, and whatever that meant. When I first started, I was sitting up at the house from 9 to 5 like I was still at Heathwood Hall, and that didn't work. That wasn't the way. So I had to get out of that rigidity because I was no longer in a corporate environment. And so I began to understand what best served me. I work very well. I'm more creative in the morning, so I'm going to spend my time. I shouldn't be at the gym in the morning. I should be sitting working. I should go in the gym late in the afternoon when my brain is a little tired. So those types of things, knowing who you are and when you are most effective, I think those are very vital.
Awesome. Anybody else want to address that?
I think for me, and I'm still the new kid on the block, but organization was, I think, critical for me to have gotten just to where I am so far. One of the things I heard a lot during the process, even with business coaches and just dealing with my counselors in the process, was how organized I was in getting, and everything. I have spreadsheets for everything, but I want to make sure that I can also reference whenever I've been speaking with someone, I'm always taking notes. I have a OneNote, so if I need to reference it, I can go back literally and use a search feature and find it quickly. But I think another major piece for where we've gotten so far so quickly is what you said, Mike, with relationships. So a closed door startup pharmacy is unheard of. An anomaly is what they said. And the reason I think is because in my previous role, I was able to build relationships that were able to translate into new business when I worked for myself. So when we started with organizations across the state that were contracting at the beginning. And I think it was having the relationships functioning in integrity even before I was my own boss, working in someone else's as if it were my own then, I think definitely was pivotal for where we are and the level of success we had.
Awesome.
I was thinking about that while everybody was talking, and I think one key characteristic as a business owner, you have to figure out what type of business owner you're going to be first. Do you want a small business? Just on the work some, make my own money, have a nice weekend, be able to, buy some ice cream on the weekend? Or do you want to be the number one person in your industry? Do you want to be synonymous when you think of a high-power lawyer? I want people to think of Tyler. And I think you have to do that, you have to, one, decide that, look, I'm doing business. I'm not doing small business, I'm doing big business. We serve a big God. He's not doing, when you started church, we had billboards. I was on the Rage billboard. We were on radio, TV, billboards. weekend, multiple services. That's the type of effort you have to give for your business to be successful. And I think you have to overdo it, especially early on, before your name recognition is going to get you there. And then also a lot of times people are, they look towards, they think, well, I go to church, this person's going to support me. You hope to get support from the people in your church and your friends and family, but you'll be surprised. It'll be somebody who does not know you at all, maybe your biggest supporter. I mean, you think something's going to be 90% of your business, it may be 5%, and somewhere else it's going to be 90%. So I think you got to really decide that I'm really going to do business. Stay dangerous. Don't be scared. Don't play it safe. You got to swing for the home runs when you're in business for yourself. So you don't need to just think I need to get on first base. You want the grand slam. And so I think that's the mentality that you have to do business successful. Get the idea of small business, conservative. That's ingrained in our nature, not being too flashy, not being too flamboyant. When I first started practicing, I wouldn't wear a suit like this.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, and then I met some, expanding my base, people I know, they said, look, Tyler, you want to get some attention with your suit. You don't just want to be a blue-born suit. I mean, if I'm going to court in Lexington, I'll be a blue-born suit, right? But I am intentionally having to tell myself all the time, step outside your comfort zone. Think bigger than you're thinking. Try to be the number one person in your space, because that's the type of glory that God wants to get through the people who call themselves kingdom entrepreneurs. So I think get that mentality, stay dangerous. No, don't stay safe. Stay dangerous. There's a rapper who used to say, "Stay dangerous," and it just resonated with me. You don't want to stay safe. You got to put yourself out there if you're going to really hit it big.
I'll interpret that. Live by faith.
Live by faith. That's right. Live by
You
faith.
got to live by the
For
just.
the young folks,
The just shall live by
don't be
faith.
scared to be dangerous.
Okay. Talk about the favor factor. How has the favor of God, and I define favor as God raising up somebody somewhere to use their power, their ability, their influence to bless you. In other words, things and opportunities and help that you didn't create this. God did this and connected you with this person, put you in this room, allowed you to hear this, whatever. Talk about the favor factor in business.
I'll just share one example. Dr. Marsha teaches us how to write manifestos, and I have a journal that I've got for every member of our household. And there are certain scriptures that I've been confessing, particularly over Gabrielle, about her confidence. And, these confessions date back years, even before we started the business. But one of them is about the wealth of nations coming to her. And, that I'm starting to see that manifest. I'll give one example. I guess it was maybe 2019 or 2020, we got an email that Marcus Lemonis was creating a podcast, and he wanted a staff person to interview Gabrielle to see whether she would be a good fit. So, we're virtual. Gabby does really well. She impresses the staff person. It's weeks, and then we hear that he wants to interview her on his podcast. And I was like, okay, that's cool. That's a big deal. This is Marcus Lemonis of The Prophet TV show. So just preparing her for that interview, we just think it's going to be an exchange. She's going to, get questions from him about the business. But it was just a supernatural setup. She got on the interview, and he was so moved by her that he asked her on the spot, how much money do you need? Now, Mike and I are in the kitchen and out off the camera, and she said a number. She said something like 150,000. I was like, I'm trying to motion like, oh, we need more than that. But that's the number she said. So he said, okay, pitch me for it. And literally on the spot. Gabby is 14 at the time. Pitched for Marcus Lemonis. If you've ever watched The Prophet, this is like the Shark Tank times 10. He's very intense. So he cut her off. He critiqued her, told her to do it again. I mean, I was about to throw up. It was very intense. But at the end, he said, I am going to invest $150,000 in your business. And then in the background, we didn't know this, he was having a surprise guest come who was listening in. It was Gayle King, like Oprah Winfrey's BFF, is listening in on this exchange. She hops on the camera and was like, are you really going to invest in her? And he was like, yeah, why would I say I would? She said, well, I want to put in 50. I mean, it was just an overwhelming, I mean, we're all crying because it's just overwhelming. But, you know, it ended up turning into like a note or investment because we weren't ready for investment at that time. And this is a testimony that I shared, I guess, anonymously. But a few months ago, I get a call that he wants to get on a Zoom call in a few minutes. And he's very intense. He's intense with me, too. Like, we have intense exchanges. But we get on the Zoom call. He calls earlier than I anticipated. I can tell that he's on his private jet, and his phone is just like staring up in his nose. It is so intense. And he's drilling me about the money and all this type of stuff and asking me all these questions. At the end of the conversation, he says, well, how would you feel if I converted the $150,000 note to $1,000? Just wiped away $150,000 worth of debt. And he just continues to do different things for her, making different connections. I mean, she has found such great favor with this, superstar in entrepreneurship. It just blows my mind. But it goes back to everything that we've been confessing and the wealth transfer and just all the things that God knew when he spoke to you through that Twitter rant over 9 years ago.
Wow.
And just seeing all those things manifest because we didn't quit, because we didn't give up when things got hard and we didn't know how we were going to make this payment or pay people on the staff or those type things. God is faithful.
Praise God. Mike, you want to say something?
Don't clap too much because that became taxable money, income. No, I was just...
Thank God for money, pay the taxes.
Thank God for tax money.
Yeah. Favor factor.
My sister put in our group chat the other day that there was a joke that her office said something like, oh, everything good just happens for Kendra. And then me and my sister were talking, me and my wife, and I believe my mom were talking about, people think favor just falls in people's laps, but they don't know about the prayers, the fasting, the long nights, the faith that it takes. And favor is great, but it doesn't just fall when you're sitting in the bed believing that God just dropped it in your lap. I mean, even when the Red Sea opened, I believe they had to walk, right? And the Jordan, the same thing. They had to do something. They didn't just see the water part. And so I'm all for favor. And I would not have any of the success, if you want to call it success, without God and the favor that's on my life. I mean, my name is in the wind at all times. I get opportunities I never put myself out for. I get calls to be on TV or do this or do that, and it just falls in my lap. But it doesn't just fall in my lap. It's from the sowing. It's from the believing God, the word that God says. It comes from not being scared. For example, I had a case where I do a lot of contingency fee work. Means that my clients don't pay me. I take the case. If there's a settlement or verdict, we get paid at the end. So there's some risk in there. And I had this case where I dumped probably $40,000 or so into it, and the reward wasn't going to be as good. And I was talking to my wife about cutting my costs almost in half. And I said, well, it's all good. This is going to take care of the person more, and I know God can bring it to me the next day. And Lord, behold, 5 figures could come to me the next day. Wasn't even expecting it. And I know that comes from the faith and believing if I do right by people, God's going to do right by me. All right? Amen. And so we cannot do what we were called to do without favor, but we got to operate in the principles, and it takes faith to operate in the principles, especially in business. Because most business advice is based off of bottom line profit. And you got to get out that mindset as a Christian entrepreneur because, number one, you don't need money. Favor can get you what money can't get you, number one. All right? So I always say money is the lowest form of compensation. I need the money. It's the lowest form, but having favor, good health, opportunities, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You know, there's a property I was looking at. It costs a whole lot of money. My wife was asking me about the money. I said, well, money's one way to get a property. You can get a property without money. It happens all the time. And so if God puts something in you, he'll see you through. And just understand, we don't play by the same rules as everybody else. But it takes faith to play that game. If you don't have the faith to play that game, the favor won't follow you. You're going to be a regular business owner. You're going to be concerned about the bottom line. You're going to be scared to give your money. You're not going to have the God type of success that he wants us to have. So favor doesn't just fall in your lap, but if you operate by the principles, it's going to come.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we got to go and wrap this up, but let's get a final question, and y'all can address this quickly. What are your faith goals in the immediate and long-term future for maybe yourself, your family, your business, and what you want to share? Mike?
I think one of my
Is it on?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest faith goals is to become a seven-figure company in a year, and to become a person that can finance the kingdom. Because one time, you can make money. I make a lot of money, but I didn't have anywhere money to go outside of the household and the things that I need to take care of. But I want to fund scholarships, and I want to put people through school, and I want to give folks affordable housing. And so now I'm starting to see in my mind's eye that this thing can grow and scale beyond just taking care of me and my family. So I think one of my biggest faith goals is to grow a business and scale it, but also to exit out of a business. That's something that you don't talk about when you start a business. Folks
Right.
don't start. You won't give it to your grandkid that don't want nothing to do with your sewing company. They don't want sew clothes.
Right.
They won't go to NBA. So I want to scale my business and make it profitable that I can exit out of a business that I create.
Okay. You want to add anything?
We will raise $1 million in a venture capital fund in the next 12 months.
Amen.
And we will also seal our first licensing agreement. So a licensing agreement with the barrette, we actually, God has blessed us. We've got 3 patents on this design of the barrette. It's the first of its kind. So we want to maximize that intellectual property and partner with character brands and have their faces or their characters on Gabby Bows, and to completely set a new standard of what a barrette should look like and how it should function. I want people to look at other barrettes and be like, man, that ain't no real barrette. You need to have on Gabby Bows, because that's how barrettes should be made. So that's how we're going to do that, through partnering with characters, and you'll see all different types of things on Gabby Bows, whether it's Disney or Crayola or whatever. That's what one of our big goals.
Awesome.
So I guess a longer term goal for Oasis is I would like for us to establish the ability to have housing for the individuals that we serve through the pharmacy. We have a lot of individuals here in the Columbia area with disabilities and special needs, and there's not affordable and safe housing for them in this area. So they are having to live in unsafe neighborhoods. You are already someone struggling with intellectual disabilities, and now you're in an environment where you're not safe. So I really would like to see the pharmacy be able to help fund some of that housing for them. We are the standard for long-term care pharmacy in South Carolina. We have so many pharmacies outside of South Carolina. They do not care about the individuals. They are looking at their Medicaid and Medicare dollars rolling in. So we will be the standard for care of what a long-term care pharmacy should look like.
Awesome. Awesome.
I was listening to a business coach, motivational speaker guy who's not a believer at all. And he said about Christian entrepreneurs, he said, y'all go to church all the time, and your goal is not to be the biggest giver in your church. And that kind of struck a chord with me. So my immediate goal is to be the biggest giver in the church.
Amen.
I believe I'm pretty
Yes.
far from it.
You can write a check right now and make it happen.
But yeah, we talk all the time. They say chairs cost $300,000. I want to be able to be the person to say, hey, I can write the check for $300,000. That's nothing. Because I believe if my goal is to give like that, God has to get through me. There's going to be more than enough. So to be the biggest giver in the church is what would be my immediate goal. However close that immediate is, it's a good goal to set.
Amen. Well, come on, go ahead.
One thing I forgot. We have a Facebook group, a private Facebook group, the RDCI Domination in Business Group. If you are a member of Right Direction, regardless of your campus, and you are a business owner, we have a private community where we share different resources, grants. We have a session every month, virtual 2 times, and then we meet in person. Bishop will be our instructor March the 19th. So we want you to go to Facebook and request to join that group. There are a lot of resources there. Just in the last less than 2 years, I know that we've been able to help members of Right Direction get over $100,000 in grants, whether it's through commercials, business education. So it is a great place in a community where you don't have to feel alone, and we can help you vet through some of these ideas. So RDCI, Domination in Business, Facebook community, we can't wait to serve you there.
Come on, let's thank our panelists tonight. Thank you all.